What's up, everyone? This is the Fraser LeVay podcast, and today we're talking fantasy bus. 9 of the biggest fantasy bus, I think, for this year. Bus is a harsh term. They're still nice people, I'm sure, but their ADP, their average draft position, is just way too high, or low, I guess, in this case. And I think they're going to underperform for what their ADP is. I think you should avoid them, fade them at all costs. And let's get into it. The number one bust I have for fantasy football is Travis Kelce. I'm sorry, Swifties. Don't come at me. Or do. Could be good content. I have nothing against Travis Kelce. I think he's a spectacular player. I have nothing against Taylor Swift. I almost went on a date with Taylor Swift, actually, in 2006, 2007, before she was obviously anything special. I was almost in her music video, one of her first ones. Met with her family, her team. It was down to me and another person, and the other actress in the music video was just really tall, so they needed like a 6'3" guy versus me, 6'1". I'm not 6'1". But yeah, so nothing against Taylor Swift. Travis Kelce, love him. One of the greatest tight ends of all time, if not the greatest tight end of all time, arguably. But Father Time is undefeated. The guy is 35 years old, and he even said last year, or this year, I guess, that he was in self-preservation mode last year for the regular season, which I don't blame him. I would do the same thing. Mahomes should do the same thing. Stay healthy, make it through the regular season, get to the playoffs. We know that you don't need to go a 13-win team. You don't need to be a 12 or a 14-win team. They were an 11-win team last year. Totally fine. Home field advantage isn't as huge anymore. So they knew when it matters, and the playoffs is when it matters. The Joker does this in the NBA, so does LeBron. I get it, especially when you're aging. Take care of your body. But with that said, that doesn't mean I want to draft him. He's going number 1 overall as a tight end in ESPN leagues and PPR leagues and the other regular standard scoring league as well. He finished tight end 3 last year. And what makes you think he's going to be any better this year? And I'm not saying better as a player. I'm sure he'll be a fine player, but fantasy-wise, he's not going to put up more stats. There's more. They added 2 great new players, maybe not great, but incredible talents on offense to spread the ball around more. And they brought back all but 1 wide receiver. So they've still got, I think, like 6 deep at wide receiver and talented players. Marquise Hollywood Brown was, I think, the sneakiest ad in free agency. I didn't even know when it happened, and all I do is read sports. And one day I was like, wait, Hollywood Brown's on the Chiefs? When did this happen? That's not fair. They drafted the fastest player in the first round this year at wide receiver, Xavier Worthy. So the ball's going to be spread around. They're going to preserve him. He said he wants to be preserved. And on top of that, a final point is the tight end position is as deep as it's ever been. So while he's aging and taking care of his body, want to know who's not and is like getting their prime? Dalton Kincaid, obviously not in his prime, but he's going to do better. He's also got no one else competing for targets with him in Buffalo. Musgrave in Green Bay was a rookie last year. Just going to grow and get better in that, I think, going to be a juggernaut offense. Everywhere you look in Detroit, you look in Pittsburgh, I think Freiermuth is going to do a lot better with an actual quarterback who's played professional football for a while, whether that's Fields or Russ. There's 9 legit tight ends this year, and there's 15 that, could be good. So Kelce's going to be fine. He's going to play great if he stays healthy as well. Let's also not forget that, like, I'm old now, and I don't even know how I broke a rib. Like, I just broke a rib playing soccer in this year. Maybe it was flag football, but I don't even know when it happened. I couldn't tell you. All of a sudden, I came home and I couldn't sleep. I couldn't lay on my side. This is what happens when you get old. Shit just happens. Like Rodgers, Achilles, Kirk Cousins, Achilles. So I hope he stays healthy. I want him to. Patrick Mahomes is my favorite athlete of all time. Went to Texas Tech, but I'm just fading him. Don't kill me, Swifties. Number 2, I think Jaden Daniels is going to be a bust in fantasy football and potentially in real football. You know what? In real football, Jaden Daniels is going to be a bust. Here's a fact. Trevor Lawrence is 24 years old, has into his 4th season in the NFL, had a record of like 38-2 in college. Let me make sure I have this right. 38-2 in college, and 34-2 in college. Sorry. Want to know who's 23 years old, 1 year younger, is a rookie in the NFL this year, had a collegiate record of 37-18, plays on an atrocious team, and is being drafted 5 spots ahead of Trevor Lawrence? You guessed it, Jaden Daniels. Not only is he being vastly overrated, I just don't think he's that good. And I'm sure he's a nice guy, totally fine. He was 22 years old and a 5th year senior playing against 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds in college. I don't care what you do. Think of yourself at age 22 and then think of yourself at age 17, 18, 19. You would beat the shit out of yourself at the 22-year-old version. He also, had he strung together a couple of good years, I would be all for him, or at least more for him. He had one good year, one good breakout year, and that's it. You know what? At 22 years old, it's just like there was the quarterback from Oklahoma State, Brandon Wheaton. He was like 26 playing against college kids, and he got taken high in the draft. And even then, I was saying this is ridiculous. Guys who are older and having a good season, of course they should. They're literally body, mentally. You grow so much mentally over those years, those formative years of sports as you kind of get into your prime and start caring more, that sort of thing. So I don't know. I'm also not here to body shame, but he came in to the combine 210 pounds. He was 185 pounds when he played in college. So kind of like how UFC fighters will cut weight for the weigh-in. I think he did the opposite and he gained weight for the weigh-in because he is not. Like if you watched him at the NFL draft, someone put him next to Timothée Chalamet in the Dune premiere and said he looked like him. He is tiny and he takes enormous hits. So let's just pretend he's 210 pounds. I don't think he is. I think he's going to play maybe around closer to 200 pounds. Michael Vick was 210 pounds. Michael Vick is 4 inches shorter. So that's like, you stretch that out, that's a lot of skin and bone. Again, not body shaming. I used to be skinny. Now I'm skinny fat. Who else? Bryce Young weighs 5 pounds less, only 5 pounds less, and is 6 inches shorter. And he is tiny. Michael Vick was tiny. If you remember Michael Vick getting hit before he learned to take care of himself a little bit, he was literally getting chucked out of bounds. Like he was getting tossed. He was tiny. Bryce Young looks like the tiniest human being on earth. So there's grown men coming at you. Yes, Jaden Daniels ran around and beat a bunch of 17 and 18-year-olds. Now he's playing against the same level of athlete and age of athlete and older. It's not going to happen. Jaden Daniels also took the biggest hits in the history of college football. He's going to die when it's a legit giant beast of a man hitting him in the NFL. So I hope he stays healthy. I never wish no injury on anyone. I just can't see it. And just not to beat a dead horse, but like imagine JJ McCarthy, who is 2 years younger. I just got to make sure 3 years younger. JJ McCarthy is 3 years younger than Jaden Daniels. So put JJ on LSU for the next 3 years. You're telling me he's not going to put up the same numbers, which he already won the national championship. Obviously, he had a great team and defense, but you can't tell me he's not going to be amazing. Same thing with Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams, he's a year, 2 years younger. Give him 2 years in the LSU offense. He's going to be incredible. Sorry, I'm just messing around with my hat right now. My hair is doing weird stuff. So I'm off Jaden Daniels. There's more stats. I was just rambling for a second. Jaden Daniels had 2 first-round pick wide receivers this year. 2, Jane Daniels, his left tackle, is going to be a top 3 pick in the 2025 NFL draft. He also had another couple wide receivers who are going to be picked high in the next drafts. His offensive line was one of the best in the country. One more stat for you. He scrambled on a quarter of the snaps he saw pressure. That is the highest rate of any quarterback in the last 10 years, behind only Trey Lance. Trey Lance isn't even going to make the Cowboys. So, I don't know. It's just not going to happen. Also, I don't want to pile on, but he's not going to like the Patriots, the Steelers, the Ravens, the Eagles, or like some perennial team is going to take care of him. He's going to the Washington Commanders, one of the worst franchises in the league forever, with a brutal offensive line. I think some people have him ranked the worst offensive line in football. A running quarterback, and yes, he is a running quarterback first. Don't get it twisted. Sure, he threw the ball a ton at LSU. They're playing from behind often, a lot of garbage yards. He couldn't throw over the middle. He always threw outside. He's not good at dissecting covers in the middle of the field. You're going to see a ton of interceptions. Please, if you're betting, bet his interceptions over. Bet him under on everything else, aside from maybe rushing yards, but who knows if he stays. I bet him under because I don't think he's going to stay healthy. And I just don't think he's going to be that good once people figure him out. So that's it. Rookie, super tiny, second worst or worst offensive line in football versus the best O-line in college football. It's not going to work out for Jaden Daniels. Next, I think he's going to be the biggest bust. Him and maybe Will Levis are going to be the biggest bust in not only fantasy football, but just football in general. Anthony Richardson. And a lot of this let me just get into it. Let me get into some numbers. Guess what Anthony Richardson's completion percentage was last year and where it ranked in the NFL? Did you guess? He was ranked 49th of all quarterbacks last year that started a game in completion percentage. I think it was second last. There's only 32 teams. He ranked 49th. Take a guess what he ranked his last year in college. The only year he was actually a starting quarterback in college, by the way. At Florida, a tier 1 program. Not like he was at Ohio, regular Ohio, not Ohio State, or Iowa State. He was at a tier 1 giant program. Where did he rank in completion percentage? Like 150th. I look at the list, he wasn't even the top 100. And by looking at the numbers, he probably ranked around 150th or more easily. This guy was drafted, 6th overall? It was a high pick, but that's insane. Last year's 4 games, he had a QBR of 26, 89, 63, and 18. He cannot throw the ball. He can't. And I think he surprised people last year. Obviously, he can rush. He's an incredible athlete. He can do a backflip. How many of your Super Bowl or favorite quarterbacks do backflips? Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Jalen Hurts, could maybe try if he wanted to. Lamar Jackson could try if he wanted to. Hasn't won a Super Bowl. I guess neither of those guys have, but Mahomes isn't doing backflips. Who cares if he can do backflips? Yes, he's a freak athlete. Yes, he tested off the charts, but you need to be able to complete passing the ball from the pocket to be a quarterback in the NFL, and he can't do that. He has terrible completion percentage. Sports Info Solution, they have him ranked 104th on target plus minus, which is what they deem like the holy grail for QB accuracy. His last year in college, his record in college as a starter was 6-7. My number one stat for quarterbacks is winning. Will Levis didn't win. I'm out on him. I've been out on everyone for years, like starting with Jake Locker and was it a Missouri quarterback? I forget his name, but ever since around that era, I've always been like, why are they drafting this guy who lost all the time this high? It's incredible. 6-7 at Florida It's not like he went to some terrible school. Now you can say, okay, Patrick Mahomes, his record wasn't great. His defense was the worst defense in the entire world. He still went head to head with like Texas when him and Baker Mayfield, I think, threw for a combined 1,200 yards in a game or 1,300 yards in the game and broke a record. And he went toe to toe with one of the best schools in the country. So while his record wasn't great, he had nothing, absolutely nothing around him. Where Florida is a little significantly higher than Texas Tech in terms of perennial teams that you really that you could root for. So I'm not buying it. If he was at a terrible, terrible school, okay, but he's at Florida. I don't care. I could go in. Let me get. Let me go. His 2020 year, he was 1 of 2 passing for 27 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. I don't. I don't know, how do you do that? How do you have one? How do you go 1 of 2 passing and have an interception? 2021, he appeared in 8 games, 6 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 59% completion percentage. I think an average completion percentage in college is like 67 to 70%. It's pretty rough to have this kind of completion percentage. And 2022, it's like, oh, maybe he'll improve on his completion percentage. No, 53% completion percentage, 17 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. I don't know. I watched every Richardson game last year as I had this take that he will be a bust, so I really had to stand by it. And he was impressive running the ball and I think surprising defenses because he completed some balls, but it was mostly on play action when they're scared about him running. So receivers were kind of running wide open. And now I think with some game film on him, since he only played, 13 games? He only started 13 games in college. Now with some game film, I think they're going to stack the box and he's going to be in for it and he's going to be a bust. And I'm sorry, I'm sure he's a nice guy. Who am I? This guy's a super freak athlete, makes millions more than I do, is way more successful at what he does than I am. I'm just telling you. If you want to bet, short him. Do not take him in fantasy. One last thing on Anthony Richardson. Ricky Pearsall was his wide receiver his 1 year he started. Ricky Pearsall played at ASU the year prior to that, which ironically his quarterback was Jaden Daniels. He had 48 receptions in 2021 with Jaden Daniels. Went to Florida, 33 receptions with Anthony Richardson as his quarterback in 2022. And then last year, he's up to 65. And then, of course, he goes in the first round as a wide receiver. So he was up, went with Richardson, way down, and then doubled his receptions the next year. What's the common denominator here? So I'm out on Anthony Richardson. And I don't want to pile on, but I did. Next, another bust I have in fantasy football 2024 is Devon Achane. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to do great. My friend Josh said he has as many 40-plus yard runs as Reggie Bush had in his entire career. So that's kind of interesting. I just think he's going running back 13. I don't see how he's running back 13 purely based on he's going to be in a he's going to be in a timeshare with 2 other running backs. So that already, you can't have an RB13 who is not the unquestioned starter. He might not even be the starter. So I'm not for it. I also am out on the Dolphins, aside from my friend who plays with them, but the defense is going to be great. Love the defense. The offense, I think, has been found out. If you know me, I've been out on the Dolphins whenever they play an actual team. So go back the last 2 years, the first 10 games or so, they have somehow managed to play 80% of those games against the worst 10 defenses in the league. Like, it's absolutely crazy. And then what happens come November, December, we all know. They fall apart. They're not the same whatsoever because they actually play some real teams. They are overrated. McDaniel has a gimmick offense, which we know is also going to be stunted a little bit now that the NFL passed the rule that they can't do all their movement before the snap that they were doing, kind of cheating. So I think the offense is going to take a big step back. I think they've been found out. I think they'll still do well, but I think Tua he was completely healthy last year. He finished like 16th best fantasy quarterback. I think a lot of people, if you asked them, they thought he was top 5. No, he was like 16th. Right now, he's being valued at 16th or 18th, 17th for this year. So I'm just out. He's also injured twice on 2 different things. He's not the biggest guys, so I think he'll still do fine. He'll have a good year, but RB13 just seems outrageous to me, and I don't see it. A couple more we'll breeze through. Some busts. I already talked about my biggest bust. Now I've got some small busts for you. I hate to pile on the Colts, but Michael Pittman, I went on about why they're not going to be good. He's going wide receiver 12. Wow, how? They're going to be like 32nd in passing in the entire league. How is he going to be wide receiver 12? There's no way this happens. There's absolutely no way. Richardson also only threw 3 touchdowns in 4 games. So by volume just alone, Pittman's not going to be a wide receiver 12. I'm out on that. Kyle Pitts, big facts. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. We've made excuses. It's like, I'm out on Kyle Pitts. I'm out for good on Kyle Pitts. He's tricked me enough. He's like an ex or someone you're dating that is awful. And you just people are making excuses. Oh no, it's the people around him. He's going to be better this year. It's just, he needed this. He was young. And just making excuses. I've had enough. He looks smaller than we all think he was. He looks kind of like a wide receiver, not a tight end. He's burned us enough. He did have really good rookie. I think he had the second highest receiving yards as a rookie. But we're going into year 3, year 4, and he just hasn't lived up to expectations. So I'm out on Kyle Pitts until he actually proves it, which, he has had the worst quarterback play ever. And now he's got Kirk Cousins, who is a good fantasy quarterback, not a good real world quarterback. I'm sorry, he's not. But so that could change. But Cousins is also 36, Achilles injury. I don't trust that either. So I'm not buying Kyle Pitts. Some other players to avoid that will significantly underperform for what their ADP is. My favorite player on earth, Patrick Mahomes. He is currently going QB1 somehow. His ADP is QB1. He's going to finish outside the top 5. I think last year he finished QB4 or QB5. So why would he be QB1 this year? He doesn't care about stats. He puts them up, of course. But he's, again, just like Travis Kelce, self-preservation mode. They're going to run the ball a ton to keep him upright. He's going to get the ball out. He just doesn't want to get injured and get to the playoffs, which he's still going to put up great stats, huge stats, and have huge games. But they're not out here to pile it on teams. They're out here to win the game, stay healthy, go home. So he's not going to be QB1 in fantasy. He will be QB1 in real life, absolutely, but not in fantasy. Aaron Rodgers, he's going right now QB14, which I guess isn't too bad. But he was QB11 his last season with the Packers, which great team on offense, still finished 11th. And that was before he was 40 years old, coming off a torn Achilles, and played for the New York Jets. So take that however you want to take it. And finally, Stephon Diggs, he's going wide receiver 15. Same thing as Kyle Pitts. If someone shows you who they are, believe them. I think there's going to be a bigger rapport with, of course, skipping my mind, the other wide receiver in Houston. I just don't see it with Diggs. I think he's going to do well. Is he going to be one of the top 15 wide receivers in the league? I don't think so. So that's it. Those are my busts. Go to faneverland.com for everything you want to read. Fantasy football, sports, soccer, basketball. That's the place. faneverland.com. This is the Fraser LeVay podcast. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you soon.